There's a pattern in Final Fantasy that only shows up when the world is about to break. A tower hangs over the story. A temple falls off the church's map. And somewhere inside that circle, 3 sisters are waiting. They don't always look the same. Sometimes they're 3 sorceresses serving an archfiend. Sometimes they're insect-like figures with wings and a carapace of armor. And sometimes they're goddesses, built out of a nation's stories and fear. But the structure never changes. One shields, one distorts, one destroys. You meet them first in a tower built for war. You meet them again in a temple the church pretends doesn't exist. And much later, you find them guarding another spire in a world that's already survived one end of days. But the real question is, what happens when power stops belonging to one chosen hero and becomes a ritual shared between 3 souls? Our story begins in Final Fantasy IV, high atop the Tower of Zot. Servants of the Archfiend of Wind, they stand in perfect formation. Cindy, the pillar at the center, Sandy and Mindy flanking her like the moving parts of a single living spell. They operate as a closed circle. Cindy shields the line. Sandy twists and redirects the magic cast around them. Mindy calls down the raw destruction. Together, they weave the Delta attack. It is not merely a spell, but a singularity born of a triune incantation. They possess no past, no memories, no human faces beyond this moment. They appear simply as absolute structure. 3 roles, 3 bodies, 1 intention. They enter the stage not as women, but as a shape of power. Spira rarely speaks the name Magus Sisters. Officially, the Church of Yevon excludes Rune Temple from the Summoner's Pilgrimage. This location is hidden, far from the carefully curated route of statues and trials every pilgrim must follow. There are no processions, no crowds, only silence. The temple is guarded by Belgemine, an unsent summoner who refuses to move on. Standing between living summoners and a covenant that never made it into Bavel's script. Belgemine is both a test and a mirror for those who walk the same path she once did. Behind her, Remiem hides a sealed door to a chamber of the faith that Yevon never advertises. Inside, 3 women carved into stone sleep together in one shared dream. These are Spira's Magus Sisters, called together as a single, triple Aeon. To reach them, Yuna needs more than obedience. The artifacts that open their chamber are not given as part of the normal pilgrimage. They are tied to Belgemine's trials and to work far outside the official route, signs that this powerful pact belongs only to those willing to step outside the lines Yevon drew. The Magus Sisters are Spira's unacknowledged altar, one of its most potent aeons, hidden behind a door most summoners will never seek. They represent power that does not ask the church for permission, watched over by an unsent soul who has already seen the truth behind Yevon's promises. Belgemine is the one stubborn soul ensuring that only those who question the script ever find it. When Yuna finally calls the Magus Sisters, her prayer is answered not by a single towering god, but by 3 distinct entities. Their formation echoes their first incarnation in FF4, a central figure flanked by 2 complementary forces, an old equation rewritten in Spiran aesthetics. Crucially, The Magus Sisters never feel like mere extensions of Yuna's will. Where other Aeons present themselves as singular, obedient guardians, the Magus Sisters move with an unsettling independence. They cooperate with each other as much as they do with their summoner, often acting less like a weapon being wielded and more like allies choosing how best to respond to the threat. The signature Delta attack lives in them like a hereditary spell. 3 aspects of power, 3 distinct roles, 1 devastating conclusion. Spira never explains who their faith were in life. No stone plaque names the women who surrendered their bodies to become this triad. But the way they behave, the way they insist on acting together, makes it hard not to imagine 3 summoners, 3 sisters, or 3 pact sworn who simply refuse to be separated, even in death. In a world that demands solitary sacrifice, the Magus Sisters feel like a quiet act of heresy and resistance carved into the very structure of an Aeon. Spira's entire theology is built on the cult of the individual martyr. One high summoner stands alone between sin and the world. One final Aeon is offered on the altar. The Magus Sisters fundamentally fracture that solitary narrative. They represent a competing theology that doesn't sit comfortably beside Bavel's stone corridors. They are 3 faith sharing one covenant, placed in a temple Yevon never includes in its official pilgrimage, and bound to a summoner who, by the time she reaches them, has already begun to question the script. The message is a direct contradiction. Yevon insists, salvation is a solitary burden. The Magus Sisters quietly insist, power is shared. No one does this alone. Even their mere existence is a kind of heresy. They represent a pact among multiple souls, a summoning that decentralizes the idea of a single perfect guardian, and an acknowledgement that the world might need more than one voice to survive. Before they were bosses or Aeons, the Magus Sisters begin with a title heavy with religious meaning. The term Magus is immediately loaded. It derives from the Magos, the ancient Persian priestly caste, directly referencing the biblical Magi, the foreign 3 wise men who crossed the world guided by an omen to witness a sacred event. This title brands them as 3 foreign agents tied to ritual, prophecy, and religious power that comes from outside the established faith. When the series uses Magus Sisters, it's an echo. They're not just 3 little witches, but 3 agents tied to destiny, always standing just outside the local faith and pushing it off balance. The second half, Sisters, firmly roots them in a powerful mythological pattern. Female triads who control or interpret fate. This evokes the Greek Moirai, the legendary fates who spun, measured, and cut the very thread of human life. It also calls upon the Norse Norns, 3 cosmic beings who determined the destiny of gods and men from the foot of the world tree. The powerful concept of the triple goddess, the 3 faces of feminine divinity that govern the cycle of birth, life, and death. And the Magus Sisters adhere to this. They are always a unit, never receiving individual backstories. Even their names, Cindy, Sandy, Mindy, sound like variations on the same theme, not separate identities. Magus Sisters functions as a religious title more than a proper name. In Spira, they appear as a female faith triad hidden beneath Yevon's official liturgy, guarded by another woman, Belgemine. They represent a powerful, outsider divine geometry that the official church intentionally suppressed. So, What are the Magus Sisters, really? They are not just a quirky trio from the SNES era. They are a recurring ritual the Final Fantasy series performs whenever it wants to ask hard questions about shared power. Every version preserves the same truth. The Delta attack is never cast alone. In Spira, they are a hidden covenant, proof that the world's strongest guardians might be the ones the official religion refuses to acknowledge. If Anima is Spira's confession of what blind love does to one soul, then the Magus Sisters are its confession of what shared power can do to a world. 3 lives bound together. 3 wills arranged into formation. 1 spell that can only exist because none of them were allowed to stand apart. Because in Final Fantasy, whenever the Magus Sisters appear, the threat isn't only that the world might be destroyed, it's that the world might be finally aligned. And you will realize that you were never meant to stand alone.